So the first thing to say is, number one, be kind to yourself. So first of all, apply no pressure whatsoever and be completely sympathetic to the situation that you're in. Okay, so kindness is key. That's the first thing to say. Just let yourself off the hook and just be nice. Now, having now then done that, so sit down and relax, make yourself a cup of tea and just go, yeah, do you know what? My life actually does suck, actually. It does suck. It is hard. Then what I always do is what I tell everyone in clinic, get a blank piece of paper, because that's where creativity begins, and then start writing down your gratitude list. Okay, that's always the first thing to start. Be counting your blessings. Now, when I was at the rockest of bottoms, okay, literally, I mean, it was so dire, so I can speak from a really, really deep personal place here, is at first I had my blank piece of paper, which is where I came up with the idea, and I was like, oh, I've got nothing to be grateful for. I was like, well, that's not true. Okay, so you just start with really basic things, like I really like tea. Okay, I mean, I do.
Yeah.
So tea. Okay, I love my dog. Okay, so I love talking, can you see? I love Chinese medicine. Before you know it, you can start, and what you do with this gratitude list is you just must write down absolutely every single slightest little thing that you can think of, like the feel of this jumper, or the look of the flowers outside the window, or walking first thing in the morning, or the feeling of sand under my feet, anything. And I promise you, it feeds the positive narrative within the body, and it sort of eclipses the negative narrative. It gives you more of a divine dialogue, and it's the beginnings of the shift.
Just a quick note before we start the full episode. If you're listening and thinking, I really need some of this guidance in my own life, my coaching program Rise is where I support women through these kinds of transitions in a more personal way. I'll leave the details in the show notes if you'd like to explore it. Hello and welcome to Midlife Answers. I'm Rachel Fortune. This is the Midlife podcast for women navigating transitions like perimenopause, relationships, confidence and well-being. This is where we cut through the noise to focus on one real question at a time, sharing clear answers and practical next steps that fit into real life, all in around 15 minutes. Today's question is one that tends to surface at a certain point in midlife. What's next for me? It's that in-between space where, on paper, life might look fine, but something underneath has shifted. You might feel pull for something more, or simply a sense that you've outgrown who you used to be, without quite knowing what comes next. To explore this, I'm joined by Katie Brindle, Chinese medicine practitioner, best-selling author and podcaster, who brings a really refreshing perspective on midlife as a time of awakening, reinvention, and stepping into what she calls the matriarch phase of life. So if you're in that space of wondering what your next chapter might look like, this conversation is definitely for you. Welcome, Katie. It is so lovely to have you on Midlife Answers. So that question, what next? I come across this so often in my coaching practice. So why is it that, particularly for women in midlife, we have this feeling of what now?
Okay, so to answer that properly, I need to step back a minute and just give ourselves the context of where we have come as women in the last 100 years, okay? Because that answers the question. The first thing is life expectancy up until relatively recently was actually only up until the age of 45. So the chances are women died in childbirth all the way up until sort of, pre-Second World War in the 20th century. So it's only been in the last maximum 100 years that our life expectancy has given us the opportunity to reach the post-pregnancy years and the post-childbirth years to actually kind of go, oh, okay, there's this other phase. Now, aside from that sort of biological fact, then there's the sort of the movement of the rights of women that have been going on alongside that, which is, it's what I refer to as the 20th century lies, she says quite dramatically. So up until this point where women were dying sort of up to about the age of 45, we weren't lied to. We were told the truth. We were told we weren't equal. We were told we had no power. We didn't have any power. So we had no rights to our voice, our opinion, our vote, our children, our finances, our homes. We had no rights. So we had no opportunities to even dare to think that there could be anything that we were there to do. We were there to have children. And once we'd had our children, we were either dead or past our sell-by date. Now, then what happens is by the time we're all born and being raised, our mothers are then saying to us, oh, well, you've got it all so easy. You lot, you've got these rights that we didn't have before. It was never like that in our day, blah, blah, blah. Now, what's then happened as a result of that is that we were told the 20th century lies. So we were told we were equal. And we had a queen and a prime minister who were both females who kind of led us to believe that that must be true. Because if you're a queen and a prime minister who are a woman, then, and you've got your mother's telling you that you've got these unprecedented opportunities, you grow up with the 20th century lies, which is you're equal. And the truth is we're not. Okay, so what's then happened is there's this thing called the matriarch. Now, the matriarch is the third archetype of the female. The first two being the maiden. Well, we know all about her. That's the virgin. Then we've got the mother. Yes, we know all about her. That's procreate, hopefully the sons and heirs. And then there's this other thing, this matriarch. Well, there wasn't one. Okay, so what's happening is there's this sort of unmet need within our biological clocks, which is you get into this menopause area, which is the natural transition of the body into this creative energy, which in the past was always there to help create life. That's what our bodies were doing, even if we didn't. That's what they were programmed to do. That then stops, and all that creative energy starts fueling into this matriarch position, which is unprecedented because it's only recently that we've even had the lifespan and going into the 21st century of truth, where we know we're not equal, but we're doing a damn good job trying to sort it out. And now my matcha.
Yeah, take a drink. Take a drink. So to go back over to this matriarch phase, then, Casey, this is a new era that we know nothing about until now.
Yeah.
Like you said, we've come through those first two stages, and now we're in this new stage of life, thinking, what does that mean? What does that mean for us?
We're the pioneers.
Yes, exactly. But I think there's two conversations going on, aren't there? There's this wonderfully optimistic one that we're trying to have now about we're entering this new stage, and yes, there is so much opportunity going forward. But I think generally 40s, 50s, 60s, it's viewed as being quite a negative stage of life. There's obviously the perimenopause and the menopause. We still got that juggle between career and home life. Many of us are potentially supporting older generations while still raising young people.
Yeah.
Underlying health issues, the list goes on.
Yeah.
And I think what I would love from this conversation is to switch that mindset. And you are obviously exactly the right person to be having this conversation with. So why can this stage be seen as one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful stage of a woman's life?
I'm not underestimating for a nanosecond the amount of unprecedented pressure that the modern day woman is under. Me too. I have aging parents. I had to nurse my mother to a death. Ultimately she died of cancer very tragically after a long fight. Children growing up, we're having our children later because we were focusing perhaps on career and social pressures. So all of a sudden, in the olden days, the only responsibility of the female was to have children. That was the only job we had. So therefore, we had it young when you have more energy and you can focus on it. People died earlier, so you didn't have your parents. So the whole thing has shifted, and suddenly this burden is upon us all. Not to mention the crippling symptoms that so many of us experience with menopause, and the issue of a Western medical system, which is great in so many ways, but ultimately it was a system that was created by men, which ultimately was tested on male bodies and does somewhat cut short when it comes to this period of a woman's age. There's a lot to be said about that, which is, let's just park that for another conversation. Or I can say to anyone interested, I have got an entire masterclass on my podcast for free about what to do about your menopause symptoms. So let's just leave that and go, I know it sucks. But nevertheless, despite all of that, we are women. And I do, as a woman, genuinely believe that women are quite remarkable. And what we call it in Chinese medicine is the second spring. Now, the second spring, as I've said, is that the one thing that does happen at this time is that the menstrual flow ceases, so that the programming of the body shifts. It does. It's a phase. It's like going into puberty. We're coming out. Okay, it's so just as everyone rolls back to when their period started and sort of, you're feeling a bit like wibbly wobbly, and then all of a sudden it begins, you can't quite you wouldn't going to set your watch by exactly what was going on, but you could sense a shift. Well, it's the same thing now. And the thing is, Eastern medicine is extremely well equipped to help and support women with these symptoms. So then what do we do? Then what happens is that all that energy of the body goes into this concept of a spring-like reinvention. And what I urge people to do is I understand and appreciate the levels of pressure that we all have. I have them too, okay? Running a business, running a family. But it's all about looking at the yin narrative. The yin is the female essence in the yin yang concept in Chinese. And yin is something which comes out from the light. So here we are, all guns blazing into the menopause with heat and hot and activity and pressure. And that's height of yang. But actually, if you look at the summer solstice, which is the height of yang, that is the beginning of the yin cycle. So what do? It starts small. It starts small. It's not about coming in with some brand new great business plan and trying to be the next, I don't know, prime minister, whatever. It's about just small little embryonic shifts which start to facilitate you to take back your power. And with that, to become powerful. And we do it step by step, brick by brick. Like, think of it like a little growing clematis in the back, in the back garden, just gently inch by inch, growing, until suddenly it becomes a very strong, powerful plant. And eventually children do grow up. Eventually aging parents do pass on. Eventually things do shift. And then suddenly you've got a little something, like a little nest egg that you've been building slowly. And there's an expression in Chinese medicine which says, where the attention goes, the energy flows. So it's just simply about having it sort of brewing in the back of your mind. So you may well be, for example, when I'm round at my dad's. So I'm round at my dad's, I'm sorting out I'm making a cup of tea, I've walked the dog, I'm sort of getting the dinner organised, I've bought shopping and blah, blah, blah. But whilst I'm doing all of that, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about the next chapter of my book. I mean, women are famed for multitasking. It's like a sexual stereotype. It's like, oh, well, of course, women can do multiple things at once. It's like, yeah, lean into it. Because it's brewing in the back of your mind and it actually ultimately nurtures your energy.
I love everything you've just said in terms of don't ignore what is going on, because I think if you have those inklings of change, they're really, really positive.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that something has to happen overnight. It's not about a dramatic shift, like you just said. It's just planting those seeds, letting them grow, letting them just experiment. You're gonna change your mind. It might be a career choice, or it might be a lifestyle choice. It's not necessarily sticking to that first thought. It's just letting you be creative with that mindset as well.
Yeah. And also, I've had loads of massive changes in my life. So it's quite an interesting astrological chart, because it kind of comes in and wallops me, good and bad. Okay, so but bad being a reflective term, because actually you tend to do your best growth.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I've come across some phenomenally brilliant people to help you with this. So, for example, this podcast. This podcast is right there aiming to be that first support. Like, what do I do? Well, come and listen to me. Let me help you through this. But also, for example, perhaps two other guests would be interesting for you would be like Rosie Nixon, who's got this reinvent yourself like a pro idea, which she talks all about, like this concept of reinvention to this audience with concrete steps and plans to say, well, this is an actual strategy to do it. So a super interesting person. And then, funny enough, I was talking to Susanna Taylor, who's she's creating this fantastic creative way of reinvention. So literally, because she's an artist and a journalist, and she's also gone through this process herself, and she's come up with a simple journal technique to use creativity to lead the way. So the exciting thing about the modern world that we're in, because I fully appreciate how horrendous it can be, but never mind that, we know all that, is the great thing about technology is it allows us in the 15 minutes, e.g. when I'm walking around to my dad's house. He happens to live around the corner, thank God. But as I'm walking, I've got my headphones in, I'm listening to you, and I go, oh, that's a good idea. Oh, I must make a phone note. Oh, chat. Make a note, remind me later. Let me do that. Let me get my journal. Oh, have Susanna on the programme. Cross-pollinate, fertilise, and then suddenly, and then, of course, what's amazing about people like us is, we're not a Kardashian. I mean, you can just message us and go, hi, my name's Karen, I'm having a nightmare, what do you think? And we will answer.
Exactly. It's making it human and realizing you're not doing it by yourself. I think that's another thing when you're coming out of the family phase or thinking about a career change. It can feel so overwhelming, Katie, and you actually end up doing nothing sometimes because you just think I'm too scared to go through that discomfort of pushing myself or exploring something that is completely alien to me. So, like you say, reaching out to people and knowing that we're all in this together. Some of us are more vocal than others, but it doesn't mean that we can't all share and support with each other's experiences.
And with that comes in the other great trump card that females, and again, I'm being a bit sexist and cisgender here, so apologies, but let me just we've only got 15 minutes. So, okay. So the other trump card that the feminine energy has, community.
Yeah.
Community is so powerful, which is, I think, one of the reasons why the big patriarchal forces, boohoo, try to break community down and try to kind of polarize people into the micro family unit, which is, of course, the sort of 1950s American picket fence concept with the sort of the family as the center. And you think, no. Human beings are designed to live in communities. Well, thank you to the woman who created the algorithm, thank God. So here we all are on these virtual communities, finding and cross-pollinating and finding ourselves within communities of like-minded people going, I'm also in that phase. I understand you. I hear your symptoms. I understand your suffering. I feel it too. But what I did when I was going through that was I did it like this and I did it like, have you heard of this person? Did you think about that person? And immediately you feel supported. And the minute you feel supported, it doesn't feel so bad.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. And by the way, the really exciting thing about all this is, I mean, I haven't spoken to a middle-aged woman that isn't suffering at the moment. Look, I've been running a clinic now for over 25 years, and never, ever in the history of my clinic has a single person ever come in and gone, oh, my life's great, and I've got loads of free time, and no, I haven't really got anything to do. Everyone is busy. Everyone is frenetic. Everyone is overwhelmed. And it's that you're not on your own. Everyone is feeling this too. I'm not debasing your symptoms. I'm just saying you're not alone. So there are ways of managing it. I come more from the medical end of things, from a Chinese medical end of things, which is all about prevention and balancing the body. And, I too went through my menopause and things, and yet I sailed through my menopause by using Chinese medicine techniques to ensure that I could. And that I observed the things when I was wobbling and my body was going off balance, and I took that as the body dialogue and then did something about it. Now, my expertise is that I happen to know all the right techniques and all the right people in order to sort myself out. But that's what I share.
Exactly. You're not meant to know all the answers. That is why you reach out to people, whether that is a healthcare professional, whether that's your own immediate friendship group, whether that is listening to podcasts. Each one of those contacts will lead to something else, and that in itself is empowerment, because it's helping you to create the life that you want to live at the end of the day. Katie, we could talk for hours about this.
Yes, I'll be my ex-husband. I literally can. He was so happy signing that divorce papers. Thank God for that. It was going, it's not cheering. It's not.
Oh no, bless you. I have got one other question, and it is, as I finish every Midlife Answers episode, it is about offering really practical steps that listeners can take away with them today. So obviously you've talked about reaching out to community. You've mentioned some really good resources, your own podcast and book, and your Chinese medicine practice already being really good places to start. But for people listening today who are feeling unstuck, disjointed, what are some small but really powerful shifts they can start doing now to help themselves move forward?
Okay, so the first thing to say is, number one, be kind to yourself. So first of all, apply no pressure whatsoever and be completely sympathetic to the situation that you're in. Okay, so kindness is key. That's the first thing to say. Just let yourself off the hook and just be nice. Now, having now then done that, so sit down and relax, make yourself a cup of tea and just go, yeah, do you know what? My life actually does suck, actually. It does suck. It is hard. And I understand that. Then what I always do is what I tell everyone in clinic, get a blank piece of paper, because that's where creativity begins, and then start writing down your gratitude list. Okay, that's always the first thing to start. Be counting your blessings. Now, when I was at the rockest of bottoms, okay, literally, I mean, it was so dire, so I can speak from a really, really deep personal place here, is at first I had my blank piece of paper, which is where I came up with the idea, and I was like, oh, I haven't got anything to be grateful for. I was like, well, that's not true. Okay, so you just start with really basic things, like I really like tea. Okay, I mean, I do.
Yep.
So tea. Okay, I love my dog. Okay, so I love talking. Can you see? I love Chinese medicine. Before you know it, you can start. And what you do with this gratitude list is you just must write down absolutely every single slightest little thing that you can think of, like the feel of this jumper, or the look of the flowers outside the window, or walking first thing in the morning, or the feeling of sand under my feet. Anything. By the way, this isn't going to be a publicized document. This is literally for you. And what you do is you just write it and write it and write it, and you think of everything. And then what I did was every night before I went to bed, so that when I woke up in the morning and I felt dreadful, you normally get about a second before that all comes in. Okay. So I was ready with 3 things I was going to do that day that I was the most grateful for, that I was going to make sure I did.
Right.
And then what I did with that was you amplify, because where the attention goes, the energy flows. So if I'm grateful for outside space because I like looking at nature, then whenever I'm looking at nature, I'm going, like, I get really carried away. You don't tell anyone this. You just go, oh, wow, oh my God, the trees, they're so gorgeous. Wow. Okay. And you want to kind of rev that up and really kind of go gung ho about how unbelievably brilliant it is. And I promise you, it feeds the positive narrative within the body, and it sort of eclipses the negative narrative. It gives you more of a divine dialogue, and it's the beginnings of the shift. Okay. And that's what you do.
Exactly. You start with the positive things, because Katie, you become what you repeat. So if you are saying really positive things to yourself, or you're acknowledging beautiful things in the world, whether that is in your own home or in nature, they become part of your mindset. Whereas if you're thinking those negative thoughts, they build, they multiply, and it will take you on a completely different trajectory.
Yeah. And you know what? Now, feel free to knock me down on this one. I switched off the news.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all.
I haven't got a clue. I literally don't have a clue what's going on in the world, because because what am I supposed to do about it? So, and the problem is with it is that if I do start, because I mean, obviously I've got ears and I've got eyes, but if I start over focusing on it, then it brings in the negative narrative. It's like, oh my God, we're all doomed. You know what? The way that the goodness will prevail is if we all focus on good collectively.
Yeah.
Okay. And that is what needs to happen. I mean, Eckhart Tolle said that it only takes 9 million people in the entire world to shift the entire world narrative. Okay. So 9 million people in their flow will shift the 9 billion people. So you've just got to get in your flow, and get into your flow means that then that energy power will ultimately dominate. And so therefore that's what I do. I'm like, I can't do anything about what's going on over. I can't do anything about it. So therefore I can do a lot about this. So I'm going to focus on this and do as much as I can with it.
Absolutely. And what a way to finish, Katie. Thank you so much. You are a midlife cheerleader. I love it. Your positivity is contagious. It really is so wonderful. And as I've mentioned, if anyone wants to read more about what you're doing with your Chinese medicine, your book and your podcast is called Own Your Health. I've listened to so many episodes. It is fabulous. I will put all those details in the show notes. But for today, again, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
What really stood out for me in this conversation is this idea that midlife isn't something going wrong, it's something shifting. This sense of stepping into what Katie calls the matriarch phase really stayed with me. That we're not becoming less in this stage of life, we're actually moving into a different kind of power. It's just a quieter one, and sometimes we need permission to trust it rather than second guess it. And I think the real takeaway is that it doesn't have to be a huge reinvention. It's not about overhauling everything overnight. It's those small shifts, the tiny moments of noticing, of choosing differently, of gently asking yourself, what if? That's often where change really begins. If this conversation helped, there are more episodes of Midlife Answers waiting for you, each one focused on one real question with clear, practical guidance you can actually use in everyday life. And I love hearing from you. So if you've got a midlife question you'd love us to cover in a future bite-sized episode, send it to me on Instagram at Midlife Answers or via the link in the show notes. And if you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and share it with someone who might need it. It really does help the podcast grow and reach more women who are navigating the same things. To learn more about Katie, she has her podcast Own Your Health and her book Yang Shen. These are definitely worth checking out. Midlife can feel confusing at times and even a little isolating, but you don't have to have it figured out on your own. This space is here for you. Thank you as always for listening, and I'll see you next time for another episode of Midlife Answers.